2%, with a lot of good benefits. Obviously, there's an affordable housing component in there. There's a workforce housing component in there. There's a a 20 and under unit. We know that we need to understand when this county take the opportunity to find out what's going to be in this redevelopment plan as it relates to affordable housing. Obviously, there's a
bringing my application to fix a cure that came in and had all of the documents necessary in which to do so, but was turned down due to a 2-minute time. I showed up at 7. So out of 800 pages, I missed one. And I was on time. Would have hoped to just make a copy in-house and clarify it, but did not seem to be, I guess, the move to do. Was told to go to the library and just trying to understand, I guess, what next steps would be, how to move forward from this. From this town, I love this town, and have just at least some.
Their sophomore year, and but I cannot come into this meetings, and in the time since, I've come to know just about everybody on the dais on a very personal level, and I'm very grateful for those opportunities. Important to board at Montclair Times, we had an empty desert, a supermarket, a grocery store there. I've also been very personally impressed by the outreach that BDP Holdings, David Plasik and his wife Bridget, a project that has come a lot of pain that is council and our mayor, that sometimes leadership is about taking action, but often leadership is about listening.
I introduce all the many arguments or deficiencies in the plan, and I'm sure many of you have not fully read the plan. It's very detailed, but also lacking in lots of details on Lackawanna. The process that you're going through right now is a shortcut for this 8-acre piece of property, as well as all the properties around this. You've already changed Glenridge Avenue coming down one direction. You're forcing a lot of traffic onto Forest. This plan during IDA is not mentioned. Tonight's process, and this will be entwined in controversy as the prior application was. We submit stations throughout to go forward in this chamber, not through this township committee, but through a process the neighbors know that a rezoning of the entire neighborhood is correct.
Still open and pending on the previous property?
you can introduce the
Okay.
I'm also on the planning board, and I'd like to just kind of support a little bit of what Mr. Heller was saying. I feel like there is a rush now to get this through, and I don't understand why. Why can't this be presented to the public? Once you pass this tonight, I understand the planning board has only 45 days to react to this 115-page redevelopment plan. And I have no judgment about it. I just am concerned about the push to get this thing done. And I don't really understand why at this point. It's been lingering on for years. Why not present it to the public? Let the public know exactly what this is going to look like, this 8-acre property. From looking at the plan, it's, as I can see, it's got 6 buildings, 5 of which are 6 stories, 1 of which is 5 stories. It's going to be huge. And not that that's necessarily a problem, but I think that we all need time to step back and look at. The first time I saw this was a week ago, and I've been trying to read it and understand it. And as I said, I have no problem with development. I'm on the planning board. I like to shape the development a little bit where I can, but I believe some historic site. It's going to be very big. We need to know more about it. And I think the public needs to know more about it. So anyway, just my 2 cents.
Mayor,
Well, we haven't been
going by one, so let's wait till the end and do all the comments. I just wanted to let you know.
But
Good evening, everybody. Dave, property in town as well. I just want to kind of clarify. I've been raised here, go to the public school, a long since I moved doing this evening. Thank you.
Recorded. The report done by Ms. Scott was signed by, I think, just in case, Mr. Mayor Spiller and council members. It has now been independent, experienced, and are actively pursuing to these questions.
About that in various venues of our shared values. You have behaved in a way, democracy, Black firefighters, seniors, women employees, for good HVAC systems in schools, yet you do not support that for the students in Montclair. The referendum's coming. Are you going to say something? This is all very disheartening. Father Benny this weekend had a homily about Zacchaeus. But he decided to change his ways. He admitted his actions were wrong. He apologized. He made amends and committed to do our fiduciary business.
Things I jotted down, but Mr. Scantlebury can look at PSC&G lighting on Church Street. Frustration that was noted as to the time they take to take care of it. We all know some of the challenges there in terms of even residential side of things. I think it's 3 years of me trying to get you to help one of my neighbors get a light on. But in all seriousness, we will look to see lighting infrastructure. Some of that PSC&G is fine with us changing. They just charge the cost differential, but we also need to look at making sure they're on, right, whatever they are on. So we'll touch base with you as a committee as well, but making sure have that on your radar.
I'll speak to Mr. McQueen tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
If I could just augment that point,
Sure.
which is behind Church Street, which is on the access to the deck. That all the other day.
Scantlebury, I'm sure, as was described and noted here, as we as the body moved and passed, and certainly called for a review of all facilities, like those meetings, but or structure support for schools, otherwise for our school. Piece and investigations, we moved rapidly to make sure there was investigation moving forward as to where that is at and ongoing, of course.
With regard to those that I can discuss publicly, there is going to be a bid put out for the independent employment practices investigation. That was decided that it was best to do that.
It's fine.
Oh, sorry, apologize. That was determined to be best practices for transparency purposes by the township.
Could you repeat, please? I'm just actually clarifying for which
For
position?
not for a position, for
Which
the independent investigation that we discussed and was authorized by the law department last week for Mr. Stafford. For the alleged complaints against Mr. Stafford that were in the Baristanet and Montclair local.
Mr. Burke, a couple quick questions.
Correct.
Mentioned here today. A question, et cetera.
Is by the statute, I told them I can do what we do. I area.
Take a process that had every from this process.
We've got a process before us that is a little different than was described in the last meeting, so I want to get everyone's take on this here. We've got one that will take.
Qualified to do it, we just don't
Right.
choose anybody.
Right, they have to have the qualifications, right? So any of these legal firms that come. Right, so they're responsible, meaning they can. How would you go through that process, Mr. Burr? You get a recommendation, how do you select the individuals?
I would reach out to that individual that was referred. I would have a conversation with them, basically a small interview, check their sources, check the referrals, and then determine whether they could adequately handle the matter.
Okay. All right, so those are the two things before us, what's the will of the body to move, with either one. I think it's important, so, and then I have a question, I saw a question from you two.
Some comments, sorry,
Well,
okay.
how about I just go down the line, does that work for you?
That's fine.
Let's make sure we get everybody, and Mr.
Yeah, if someone,
Go to someone else and come back.
the last council meeting, where I had to recuse myself because I am a fact witness with the Mr. Councilor, we discussed it last week. He did recuse himself when we did the ordinance, did the resolution to put the manager on the rise.
Township have insurance in this
Issue.
being that fast, and it takes a couple of months. So I would like to know, and if we can all consider, what our plan might, so my considerations are, can we look for?
Mind you that personnel matters that we discuss need to be discussed in closed session.
Thank
To
you.
relate to the person, because we are.
As Mr. Stanelberry, the right process as well. So I'd like for us all to consider those items. I don't know how we're gonna do it, if you could all think about that and see how we're gonna go forward. Thank you.
About any lawsuits and how much, and is it covered? It is, we do have insurance, but Councilman, there
Thank you.
Mr. Berry.
Mr. Iacobellis, one of the reasons why I haven't distributed the report is because I had the rule by me in the.
Right now? Excuses. What's wrong with now?
So I can't, I'm not at liberty to give a express answer to that. I would probably say that that is also a matter that should be dealt with in executive session.
I would like, but things have changed since then. And in particular, we have a new lawsuit filed by tonight. I'm going to ask, and I'm going to pass around suggested amendments, allegations
Can I
there.
just respond to that?
Township Affirmative Action Officer Bruce Morgan completed a report in August of 2022, and then bringing some of those conclusions into the investigation as well. And then amending the first, now therefore be it resolved, to say, now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and the council of the Township of Montclair and the County of Essex that the immediate placement of Tim Stafford, Township Manager, on temporary paid administrative leave without loss of salary or benefits pending the conclusion of the independent external investigation concerning the allegations and statements contained in, this is the important point, all aforementioned articles.
Any information?
Yes, it allows what we wanted to make it, the understanding was that it was going to be narrow, but it does allow for any investigation. Very much entwined, and I withdraw that comment.
Can you speak to that?
I would say, again, that any further discussions on this would help in executive session. Protecting the township from potential.
So just our budget, it's bigger than just the council and this building. It's about the people in town, it's about our employees, it's about the things that are coming up in the I'm really not saying this for applause, this is how I feel. But when we say we're doing what we're doing here and do everything we can, lawsuits, when we have them, that is why. I will.
Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for all the comments. I want to clarify, and Mr. Burke can help me if I don't get this exactly, but, okay, I really want to be very clear. It's a term of art. Process is just, and what was initiated was per the last meeting. So a week ago, we did, I want you to know that evening, we discussed labor council, who made a recommendation that they didn't want to handle it in-house, but that they recommended someone. I think he already discussed, and as I understand it, the acting manager had a consideration that it would be more appropriate to do the other kind, the fair and open bidding process. So I just wanted to, first of all, put those terms to some clarity, that it's not that the first one was process. So I will say, to the extent that it was efficient and effective and appropriate, and I believe there was a perfectly validly chosen attorney who was going to undertake that, and I guess that it is putting it to bid and having the time it will take to go through that process, which is another perfectly. I believe it was with a certain sensitivity. In other words, there was no conflicts, none of us.
Correct. Provide the services.
Thank you, and then just to clarify again, in the resolution we passed, it identified the particular in media articles and such to an investigation and formally employed by the town. Any other reason to think that they would have been related to the fact pattern here?
Holistic. What alleged complaints that were made to specific individuals or allegations to now know as Combe Township, and that include that individual.
And just to clarify, also people who to the extent that we know who formerly worked here, who's left in the last X number of years, for example, if they would reach out to a universe of people who would logically be people to, that would be within the scope of that. Okay, so I would, offer my opinion, I would suggest that we would go back.
But I'm okay with it being in writing. We completely left out Mr. Morgan's report, regardless of the resolution, that looked at as part of it.
Yes.
That you approve that you feel is qualified to handle the job.
Yeah.
Wanting to handle this in a different process, I think it's incumbent on us that we get this ball rolling as soon as possible. And so, and as much as I can say this, I guess you may not matter, as much as don't want to say this, it's a matter of semantics. Because the investigator is going to, clearly, all of this has been in the paper. We've had discussions about this, so, you know, you have the trail of which a good investigator will be able to do this. And as much as we've been discussing this, I just want to get this going. And so I'm agreeing with Councilor Price Abrams, and I'm assuming Councilor Schlager and Councilor Lacabellis, and probably all the council, that we should move forward with this and get it done, get it going.
Thank you, Councilman. Let me go down around the horn just so you
Give it further.
know, 2 more weeks, get through that.
To our labor council who referred us to an investigator. So I move that we follow that course.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. That's on the motion. Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Cummings, Counselor Schlager.
Appreciate all of the insights from every status. That was one of the questions that a couple of the questions that we received there, so I wanted to address that specifically as well. About legal fees and other pieces in the legal department, we do often have transfers to various departments, including legal. Legal is always pretty expensive. Mr. Burr, as to cost overages, that was a question, but question of
Really not able to go into detail about that. I will be willing and happy to supply the council with any information that they want or need with regard to the law department budget. Just send me questions, I'll get that information to you, or I can come to the next meeting and have more information in front of me, so that you receive a comprehensive as opposed to a piecemeal report from me.
Okay, understood. Thank you, and certainly I'll note township. We have traditionally, as do almost all towns, have multiple firms that, whether it's labor council, that's the process that agenda, so I'll list those pieces. Appreciate that. Any other comments from my colleagues? Councilwoman Price Abrams.
Well, Mayor, yeah, I'm looking at my notes. I wonder if we could just clarify, as the gentleman who brought his application was late, and I wonder, Madam Clerk, if you could confirm, was it within 2 minutes? What was, can you just verify the facts of what exactly transpired in terms of the filing? If I maybe lay through the facts, I think they were that there was something incomplete, you had an opportunity to cure it, and then there was a deadline and a time at which it was to be filed in hand. And then, can you give us what happened, please?
Can I just chime in real quickly on that? As the council's aware, this relates to cannabis licensing. I want to be mindful, I want the council to be mindful that this is a very sensitive issue. I think the committee, so that there's whatever can be discussed, as I'd like to try and avoid that.
From can have.
Anyway, so is there a time sensitivity on this piece, or we can table it?
November 10th.
Excuse me?
November 10th.
Okay. I know my colleagues had received this when I did, this is what we're looking at here, so.
I went through the whole thing. I had one question about one.
Do you remember those training
I
modules?
do, that was quite a while ago, okay.
But those training modules were like testing.
You completed it?
One of the misses was that not all council members submitted financial disclosure since didn't know. Vehicle.
High scoring category and receiving full financial because of how well we score. So, okay, good to know.